Welcome to the world according to Rowan Dean.
Good evening and welcome to the world according to Rowan Dean here on News 24. A world in which COVID never happened because the governments and the bureaucrats had listened to people like me. Huge show coming up, including, remember when they tried to bribe the plebs to get vaccinated with free French fries and a burger? Plus, is Prince William a few grouse short of a royal picnic, or just another crazy climate cultist? And the bravest man in music today, a truly courageous, rebellious punk hero. Who could it be? But first, some of you may remember that I was one of Australia's staunchest critics and sceptics as regards every single aspect of the COVID madness, both here on this network and in the magazine that I am editor of, The Spectator Australia. From day one, I didn't buy the Wuhan bat-soup stir-fried pangolin stories. I didn't buy the whole lockdown story. I didn't buy the mandatory masks and stay off the beach and wrap yourself in protective plastic idiocy. And significantly, I actively and repeatedly questioned whether hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin could be possible remedies or prophylactics. For that, I was consistently demonised and I was even defamed in the Australian Senate by the Greens and others at a hearing for spreading misinformation, specifically about ivermectin. This network, to its eternal credit, always supported me and allowed me to express my own opinion to the best of their abilities, something which became harder and harder as the COVID tyranny progressed. I only ever challenged the prevailing orthodoxy through the time-honoured processes of doing my own independent research, asking questions, challenging the authorities and the so-called experts, and being sceptical of the overwhelming abuse of power that was clearly occurring during those ghastly years. And I certainly was horrified and opposed to everything to do with the disgraceful mandatory vaccination programs. So it was with a mixture of emotions that I listened to the exposure of the disgraceful actions of Anthony Fauci, who, as the chief medical officer of the United States of America, was the single most powerful and significant individual in the world when it came to the medical tyranny of COVID. Fauci was quizzed on Wednesday night in the United States Senate, where he disgracefully, and some say impermissibly, pleaded the Fifth Amendment and refused to answer a single question. Let's not forget, this was the man who brazenly, narcissistically, and now we learn sociopathically, referred to attacks against himself as attacks on science.
You're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science. Science and the truth are being attacked.
Yet here he was this week.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions.
What a disgusting, despicable coward. But those hearings make compelling viewing, and his silence is testimony enough for future generations to see what a disgrace the whole COVID scam was. Here's just a sample on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine.
I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and did you do that because you knew the only way you get emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs in favor of remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses, are you aware of the fact that nurses called it run, death is near?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
As is now clear, and I say this with not only bitterness, but also a profound sense of sadness and very little pleasure. I was correct in every aspect of my scepticism, every aspect. But more importantly, there were tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Australians, viewers of our show Outsiders, who looked to me, who looked to the three of us on the show, and more importantly, looked to our guests, such as the brilliant and vindicated Professor Jay Bhattacharya, who we had on right at the beginning of the pandemic, Professor Robert Clarence, Dr. Michael Levitt, Dr. Julie Sladden, Tony Nikolic, the sacked Qantas pilot Graham Hood, sacked policeman, sacked fireman, and many, many others, victims of COVID. Viewers looked to them and us for hope, for common sense, and above all, for the truth. And those voices and ours were first ignored, then silenced, then demonised by our political and regulatory masters at the behest of both Labor and the Coalition. Shame on Scott Morrison, shame on Dan Andrews, shame on Gladys Berejiklian, Anastasia Palaszczuk and all the other state premiers. Shame on those ghastly and moronic chief medical officers whose arrogant preening faces blighted our news stations every single night with their ridiculous statistics and fear-mongering about the unvaccinated or touching footballs or ordering a pizza or going to the beach. Shame above all on the faceless bureaucrats of bodies such as the TGA and APRA. Shame on all of you petty authoritarian cowards who should, in my opinion, all be in the dock. But back to the hearings, where Fauci refused to answer a single question or even attempt to justify a single accusation. I always said COVID was about money and politics, nothing to do with the genuine health and science. Looks like I was right.
Silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to blambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy.
Joining me now is South Australian Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Alex, great to see you as always. Now, shocking scenes. Spanish military units have been called in after mass numbers of migrants from Morocco poured across into Spain in Ceuta, overwhelming the local authorities there. Here's what Nigel Farage has said about it.
This is happening today in Ceuta, the Spanish enclave in North Africa. Yep. It is Spanish territory. Tens of thousands, maybe more, breaking in to that little part of Spain. The authorities seemingly powerless to act.
So, Alex, we discuss immigration here, but my goodness, you would not want to be in Spain at the moment. What's your take on it?
Yeah, no, we certainly wouldn't want to be in that little principality just off the corner of North Africa there, which, as you say, is Spanish territory. Look, it's sort of familiar. It looks like the US border under the Biden administration, and many have pointed out on Twitter today that that's what it would look like if the Democrats got control of the US government again. But it's just, I think, helpful to pause for a minute and just remember what we're dealing with here and the prospects for countries all over the world that don't protect their borders. And, this is a unique scenario, but we have to remember that without borders, you really don't have a country. And, the left, where's the condemnation from the left over this at the moment, by the way? There's been all sorts of environmental impacts people are pointing out, there's rubbish everywhere, and the left don't condemn any of this. I just think it is a very, very difficult thing. It's very difficult in Australia, by the way. One of the things that doesn't get talked about enough about the migration debate here in Australia is the extent to which you become radioactive in politics or as journalists. I mean, not you, obviously you've spoken about it at length. If you broach the subject, you talk about mass migration, you are immediately a far right, hard right, white supremacist. And more than that, the laws that have been changed and created over the last few years, particularly in places like New South Wales, which had those hate crimes laws changed, make it very difficult for people to speak without fear or favour about these sorts of issues, lest they be accused in a criminal basis of acting, provoking racial disharmony, whatever the law says over there. And of course, that flows across jurisdictional borders on the internet as well. So theoretically, if a Western Australian senator was to make the wrong comment or perhaps put a toenail over the line when it comes to making commentary about migration, then they would potentially face criminal sanction. That's the sort of incursion on free speech, and the direct result are the sort of scenes you see there.
Absolutely. On a kind of related topic, there was an article in the Australian by Jeff Chambers, quite a good article, an interesting article, saying, why don't Angus Taylor and Pauline Hanson sit down and have a cup of tea together? And it was referring to this issue that we're talking about indirectly, which is, of course, that both Pauline Hanson, as I understand it, and the Libs have put up separate ideas as to how to kind of prevent the ISIS, alleged terrorist, etc., individuals from that neck of the woods who are Australian citizens coming back into Australia. Both sides seem to be saying, well, we've got the answer. Can they work together? Should they work together? And what is the answer, in your opinion, Alex?
Well, look, I think the first thing I'd say is I've probably been one of the people that has hoped that there will be some sort of ability to work together, whatever that looks like. I don't have the answers at the moment, whether it's preference deals or more or less, whatever, I don't know. But my concern is that for a range of reasons, the country is tanking. We are in managed decline. This country cannot stand another 3 years of Labor government. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country at all. And so we have to face the political reality from the Liberal Party that at this very moment, One Nation are polling something in the order of 30% of the primary, and we're polling 19%. Now, I suspect that'll change. Things will ebb and flow, and they are polls after all. You know, it's my contractual requirement as a politician to say, you know, I don't believe in the polls, but I mean, look, let's be realistic about it. The one is that the only poll that matters is the poll of election day. Sorry, TM, should have put that in. But that, of course, is nonsense because the trade winds are flowing towards sensible conservative politics, and at the moment, that is being best prosecuted by One Nation. Now, Angus Taylor is catching up. He's doing a great job, and as I've said many, many times, he's turning the Titanic around. I'm a member of the Liberal Party. I'm a sitting Liberal senator, but my overriding concern is for this country. I have never heard more people say, I'm leaving, I'm thinking of leaving, or maybe I should be thinking of leaving. The Google searches now prove that. Google Trends will show that trend, people searching for ways to leave this country. Last night, my YouTube feed showed up old ads from 1988. And once again, I understand it's my contractual position to have to say this when I'm a 50-year-old man. Everything was better in my day. But the stark contrast between the Australia of the 80s and 90s and the Australia of today is tragic. It would bring a tear to a grown man's eye. We've got to fix it. And if that means swallowing political pride and swallowing partisan politics, our overriding obligation is to fix this nation. So help us, God.
Hear, hear. Just very quickly, got a minute left. Alex, you were one of the very, very few politicians who spoke the truth and spoke honestly throughout the nightmare of COVID. You stood up against the madness. What did you think of Dr. Anthony Fauci's appearance on Capitol Hill yesterday?
Well, I should start off this love-in by suggesting that you were also one of those people that did that, Rowan, much to your credit and much to the, the detriment, I think, of your own sanity and health. So you did very much the same. There were a few of us on all levels, politics and in the realms of media, not many though. And what I noticed through that period is how frightened politicians and journalists were to speak the truth. Things that just didn't make any sense now make more sense as you hear the diaries, at least the Fauci diaries come out. I mean, we didn't get much out of the hearing when he pleaded the fifth every question for 111 questions. But look, the Overton window is catching up to this period. I keep saying this. People say to me sometimes, why are you still talking about COVID? Well, the answer to that is because people are still suffering from what happened during COVID, many of them, lots and lots of them. We have an obligation to fix this. The Overton window is catching up. We now know it's about a 5-year period, the Overton window for the political class anyway. I had people during COVID that were just simply had their own experiences, adverse experiences with COVID and still wouldn't talk about it. Well, maybe they can now. Maybe politics can finally start catching up and we can start getting to the bottom of this so we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. Alex Antic, always great to chat to you. And yes, you did an amazing job during that period. Thanks so much for chatting to us here on The World According to Rowan Dean. And now it is time for, appropriately, The World's Gone Mad. Yes, it truly was a world gone mad. Not only mad, but completely bonkers 6 years ago during the insane COVID pandemic. The Fauci hearings revealed the sorry, sad truth of COVID. It was all about money, greed, pride, ambition, and a lust for power. Still, you could cry or laugh about it all. So let's have a good laugh, starting with the hearings themselves.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment.
Yes, the man who told us he was the sole source of the truth, or was that Jacinda Ardern? He wouldn't even say what colour the carpet was. So let's just remind ourselves how completely nutty our fellow citizens allowed themselves to become thanks to Fauci's folly. Remember this nonsense?
But you've got to put your arms through the bottom one. Yeah? So your arms are through the bottom one. Okay? My arms go through the top one. And I
Honestly. But it was, of course, the left. The left. And Hollywood who really made complete asses of themselves. Here's Julia Roberts falling at Fauci's feet back in the day.
We have maybe the coolest man on the planet right now. Wow, and there's the room. This is intense. Does anybody else have
Hello. Hi there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, this is such a thrill. How are you?
Pretty good, I guess. You know, it's a little bit like running on fumes for a couple of months, but
I would imagine this is a thrill for me because you truly have emerged as a personal hero for me, and you've been this true north, I think, for a lot of people.
Yes, that utterly cringeworthy and sickening performance by airhead actress Julia Roberts was only one example of how deranged and unhinged the majority of people, but especially those of the left, were during COVID. The hero-worshipping of the now thoroughly discredited Anthony Fauci was obscene. Who can forget this performance from Stephen Colbert, a lefty, on mainstream TV? Dancing syringes. How those people sleep at night still staggers me. The madness was out of control, folks.
Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines. Help all the people who have been quarantined. We'll wear our masks and we'll have to stay distant. We'll wash our hands and we'll be more resistant. Fauci, yes? Promise us, please. We'll have a cure that can fight off this disease. Restrictions will lift with some ease. Dr. Fauci, don't forget me.
Or how about this? Bribing unsuspecting people to get vaccinated. Yes, this is real ethical stuff, folks.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries? I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination.
So ethical. There are some who accuse the vaccines of murdering people. Who knows? But the COVID cult certainly managed to murder a perfectly good song by John Lennon.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
No hell below us.
above us only sky.
Imagine all the people
Living for today. Yeah.
Imagine there's no countries, yeah.
It isn't hard to do.
Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people.
Ah! Make it stop! Make it stop! That'll do. And there's more of that. What a horror show of talentless and vapidity.
Get that vaccine!
I've had mine.
I look fantastic!
Just get a vaccination.
But wait, there's more.
Right, turn on the lights. Not gonna lose our mess tonight. What's the dealio?
For loved ones so they could hug them safely.
The way through this pandemic is by getting everyone vaccinated.
Shout out to our favorite MD, Anthony Fauci.
Trust in everything you tell me, Dr. Fauci.
Yes, the COVID years, the Fauci years. Hopefully, we'll never see the likes of them again. They truly were a medical world gone mad. Don't go away. After the break, is Prince William a few grouse short of a royal picnic? We'll find out in Whether or Not, and the bravest punk musician of today. All that in a tick. Don't go away. And joining me now is John Hinderaker, the president of the Center of the American Experiment. John, it's always great to see you. Well, so much fun with Fauci appearing before Congress on Capitol Hill there, the Senate, refusing over 100 times, 111 times he took the fifth, meaning he refused to answer for fear of incriminating himself. But there's questions over whether he was even permitted to do that. John, can you explain what happened on Capitol Hill and why it is so significant in terms of the outrageous COVID years?
Rowan, it was really stunning. This is an accounting that has been 6 years in coming. Anthony Fauci was he was supposed to be Mr. Science, right? The lockdowns, the masks, the vaccines, the whole thing. It was all driven by Anthony Fauci. And he has previously told reporters he would love to testify before Congress, wants to do it. Well, when he had his opportunity, summoned by Senator Rand Paul, who, by the way, is a real doctor, not like Dr. Fauci. Rand Paul was an eye surgeon before he became a senator. Fauci took the fifth over and over. What that means is he said that he won't answer because any answer he might give to the question may tend to incriminate him, may tend to show that he is guilty of a crime. This is absolutely stunning. What a downfall for the guy who 6 years ago was presented to the rest of us as the czar, telling us all how to live.
Exactly, and he was pardoned by Joe Biden, but the complication seems to be that the pardon suggests, or some of the senators suggested, well, that means you can't plead the fifth. But that's another question. I played earlier in the show some of the lunacy, the madness, all the crazy dancing, all the Hollywood woke garbage that went along with all the authoritarian, the most disgraceful authoritarian measures, particularly here in Australia, as you know. But what for you, John, I guess, was the most egregious, the most undemocratic, dangerous thing that future generations will look back and go, I cannot believe they did that during COVID?
Well, Rowan, you could cite many examples. I'll give you just one. I live in Minnesota, and our governor, Tim Walz, literally issued an executive order that no one in the state of Minnesota could leave his house except as permitted by the governor. That was the most nakedly fascist act that I've ever heard of any American governmental entity taking. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. And one of the things that we saw, Rowan, is that so many Americans were willing to sit still for this. I mean, that is something that a lot of us here are still kind of trying to get over.
I agree, and so many Australians went along with it. Brought to mind the famous Clive James saying that you might not be familiar with, John, but Clive James said, the problem with Australians is not that we're descended from convicts, the problem is we're descended from prison officers. And we saw that during COVID, the authoritarian streak. But, John, I also want to ask you, where do we go from here? What are the ramifications, A, for Fauci? Clearly his reputation is now in the toilet. But will there be further actions against Fauci? And more importantly, will actions now be taken to prevent this ever being able to occur again?
Well, Rowan, that second question is the important one. But let's start with the first one. So Rand Paul and his committee have referred Fauci for potential criminal prosecution for contempt of Congress. He was testifying under a subpoena. He was compelled by law to testify, and instead he asserted his right against self-incrimination. Now, as you mentioned earlier, he's got a complete pardon from Joe Biden for relating to any possible federal crimes that he may have committed while he was an employee of the U.S. government. So why is he entitled to take the fifth? That's a really good question. Now, maybe he's afraid that there are state prosecutions that could happen. So the first thing that'll happen is that maybe he's going to be prosecuted for contempt of Congress for refusing to testify when he had the pardon. The other thing, though, is that the state of Florida has already announced that they're launching an investigation into whether Fauci violated any state laws. Those would not be covered by Joe Biden's pardon. Now, whether he did or didn't, I don't have any idea. Offhand, I don't know what that state law would be, but that's another potential legal threat to Anthony Fauci. The broader question, though, as you say, Rowan, is have we learned anything from this experience? And I'm afraid the answer might be no. I mean, the coronavirus was, the common cold is a group of coronaviruses, and COVID is now just one of the common cold viruses. I mean, this was not the Black Death. One of these days, a more serious virus is going to come down the pike. And I'm not sure, honestly, that our institutions or even our people have learned much from this experience.
Yes. Shocking stuff. Well, we shall see. Hopefully we won't see within our lifetimes, but you never know. But the sheer totalitarian authoritarianism of it all was terrifying in our democracies. There's a big gap there. But now I want to ask you, US President Donald Trump says that his board of peace has reached an agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. Well, I wouldn't be taking Hamas's word for that one particularly, but Donald Trump is optimist, if nothing else, says it's a critical step towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government. What is this new Palestinian government going to look like? Is it going to be the PA? Is it going to have some kind of Saudi or Gulf component? Or is it just Hamas under another name, John, in your opinion?
Well, Rowan, Gaza tends to be governed by the people that have the most guns. And for quite a long time now, that has been Hamas. It's really interesting. Trump's board of peace has been out of the headlines. Gaza has been out of the headlines. Then all of a sudden, there's this announcement that Hamas has agreed to disarm. We're told that Israel is skeptical of this alleged agreement.
Can't think why.
Don't blame them.
Can't think why.
Don't blame them. Hamas is a creature of Iran, and just like the IRGC, you can't believe anything that they say. And is there really an agreement? What's it going to lead to? I don't have any idea, Rowan. I mean, obviously, I don't trust these people as far as I can throw them, but we're going to have to see how this plays out.
And John, I just quickly wanted to ask you about a guy I'm increasingly impressed with on the Democrat side of the aisle, which is, of course, John Fetterman. And he was there at the Fauci hearings. I think I caught a glimpse of him there. But he also came out and was very strong when he was pestered by some left-wing magazine saying, listen, Hamas are the bad guys. I support Israel. Get used to it. The more that Hamas, the American army can knock off Hamas leaders, the happier I am. How refreshing, but also what did you make of it?
Well, John Fetterman is a Democrat. You know, he votes with the Democrats 80 or 90% of the time, but he does have some principles. He has some standards, and one of them is he is pro-Israel. He's anti-terrorist. He's anti-Hamas. And he has said that the one thing that could cause him to leave the Democratic Party, even though he agrees with the Democrats on a large majority of issues, is if they become openly anti-Israel, which of course they're in the process of doing. We see this across the country. And so again, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Chuck Schumer recently made some very conciliatory statements about Fetterman. He obviously wants Fetterman to stay a Democrat. There's a very tight battle right now for control over the U.S. Senate. So Schumer is trying to keep Fetterman inside the tent. And I think to do that, the Democrats are going to have to fend off this outrageously anti-Semitic wing of their party that we see with people like Mayor Mamdani in New York City.
Well, John, here's a crazy idea. I'll give it to you for free. You can spread it through the American media. How about John Fetterman for the candidate for 2028 for the Democrats? Now that'll be a bit of fun. That's what I'm looking forward to. As I said, I am an optimist. John Heinderecker, always great to chat to you. And now it's time for our weekly dose of climate doomsdayism, whether or not. Yes, subjects of the British and indeed the Australian Crown must ask themselves whether or not Prince William, like his father, is a few grouse short of a royal picnic, with his comments this week that the wildfires in Europe and Scotland are evidence of, quote, an increasingly extreme climate. The Prince may well have been simply responding to a preposterous article in the UK Telegraph by Tim Stanley that urged Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, to get real about climate change or else the Tory party was doomed, or some nonsense like that. The actual evidence, of course, suggests otherwise, with numerous, more rational explanations being put forward for what are, in fact, fewer bushfires than the norm. According to this chart from the Global Wildfire Information System, which shows 2026 being well below the yearly average for wildfires. But regardless of that, Prince William, whose family have a beautiful estate in Scotland and a long history with the gamekeepers up there, might find those who actually work on the land have a slightly more realistic appraisal of why the fires are so severe this summer. And it's all to do with Britain's insane left-wing rewilding project, which you now see throughout Britain's once beautiful parklands and forests, which basically just means letting all the weeds grow wild and not taking care of the undergrowth, so there's rats and God knows what. According to this Scottish farmer, the rewilding, is what is to blame for the fires, not climate change.
They're all blaming climate change and crap like that. I blame the rewilding and the regeneration, and fires will always happen. They'll always happen, and they always have. The thing is, what happened before, our gamekeepers and farmers had fire breaks all over the hills and the mountains. They had sheep in the mountains, would make pathways. So when there was a fire, say 10 years ago, you know, the fire brigade or the farmers or the gamekeepers would have it out within an hour or 2 hours. The problem is now, there's no fire breaks. So if a fire breaks out, it goes for miles.
So do your homework, Prince William. Similarly, this farmer, listen to him, farmer on the moors.
I think you've got to have people on the land that understand it to manage it right. If you think about it, this is what my moor would look like like what they say they want the moors to look like now by stopping burning. Now you imagine, as far as your eye could go, everything you see was this high, which it was, and that this gets on fire, there's no way you're going to stop it. Well, at the moment, if this gets on fire, it'll go into the green bits, it'll soon go out. Areas that are not managing it, I mean, all we've seen is wildfires. People have not considered that, you know, sort of rewilding. I mean, this valley I have here, I could say I've rewilded it, I haven't, I've revamped it. I've put trees in, I've managed it, and we do burn some of it so that the whole lot doesn't go up in wildfire.
But it's not just the left's insane rewilding projects and shockingly poor land management in Britain that are causing the current wildfires all across Europe. A total of 162 people have been arrested in France since July 6th, linked to fire outbreaks, and 9 people arrested in Spain. The French government says 9 out of 10 fires are human-caused, with around a quarter started deliberately and the rest by negligence. But most disgusting of all are the numerous reports of, quote, cats, yes, cats, with flammable, soaked rags tied to their tails, being responsible for many of the blazes. These sick arsonists apparently tie rags soaked with petrol or fireworks or other such flammable devices to cats and then let them loose into the fields. Numerous incinerated corpses, I'm sorry, have been found. Quote, the terrified animals end up running around and spreading the fire, said Domenico Costarella of Calabria's Civil Protection Agency, adding that other pieces of evidence also pointed to arson, including candles lit among flammable rags and delayed ignition devices. What sickos. And why would people do stuff like that? Well, Californian researcher Lauren Pearson told CNN last year that there is evidence that mafia groups often set fires to gain control of territory, often buying land at a premium in the aftermath of the fires. And what would that be for? According to Pearson, quote, organised crime groups have taken advantage of Italy's clean energy transition. One farmer who testified to an anti-mafia commission in 2022 said he was approached by solar panel companies to sell his land after it had been burnt. Or as Don Corleone might have put it in The Godfather, I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse. Climate, schmimate. Coming up, Trump says Hamas has agreed to complete disarmament. Yes, but is that actually going to happen? The panel will discuss that next in a tick. Joining me now is former Labour MP Michael Danby and former Speaker of the House Bronwyn Bishop. Great to see you both. Well, of course, the huge news this afternoon is, of course, that Hancock Prospecting, that's Gina Rinehart's company, is now taking legal action against the ABC. This will be huge. This comes in the light of that disgusting, vile video that the ABC happily put to air, ignored all the kind of processes and warnings, put it to air, calling for the sodomizing, torture, murder of Gina Rinehart, live there on your TV screens. It was all there. This is an absolute disgrace. Many people have said it is a disgrace. There's been a kind of mealy-mouthed apology from the filmmaker herself, saying it was satirical and it was funny and not everyone shares her sense of humour. She didn't even have the good grace to mention Gina Rinehart by name. But it is Kim Williams and the ABC head honchos, in my opinion, Bronwyn Bishop. They are the ones. I'm so thrilled that Hancock Prospecting and Gina Rinehart are now taking legal action against this obscenity, this depravity, Bronwyn.
Absolutely. Every time I've heard it repeated, my stomach just turns. It is disgusting. I have never seen anything like it, and the ABC has failed at every level. It's got 15 people in its legal department. It's got experienced EPs. It's got a board of people who know better than that, or should know better than that. Would Marx have ever put that on Channel 9? I mean, ask yourself. Supposing, people say, oh, supposing it being done against a Labor Party person, like Penny Wong, for instance. Imagine the scream. But I am so pleased that Gina, who is a courageous woman, who women in this country should look to as someone who's an achiever, who cares about the nation, who rewards our people over at the Commonwealth Games, who is everything that does right. And she is going to take action against these people, and I hope to hell it's strong. And it has big occurrences, because this is sacking offences. And not only that, the Act itself needs changing. They've got a charter, but there's a provision in that Act that says you cannot take any action against the ABC for breach of its charter. So what's the point of it? I've said for years, take that provision out. Go for it. This has got to be, if not the death knell for the ABC, but my God, it's coming close.
Well, I hope it is the death knell for the ABC. It deserves to be. Michael Danby, Gina Reinhart puts her money where her mouth is. She's supported those athletes. We've seen great incentives for all the medals that are coming out. She supports charities, women's refuges. She supports young men and women across Australia getting jobs. Extraordinary philanthropist. She puts her money where her mouth is. She's now putting her money in the attack against the ABC to go after them for the disgusting video they put to air calling for her murder. Where do you think this is going to go, Michael Danby?
Well, Rowan, and Bronwyn, let's put aside the depravity of what the ABC did. As a former member of the Intelligence Committee and Chairman of Foreign Affairs in Federal Parliament, let me explain to Kim Williams this. You ought to read the newspapers, Mr. Williams. Don't you see what's happening to executives all around the world when untrammelled incitement to violence is made against them? They are attacked. People are killed. This is a serious situation. Just look at what happened to that executive in New York in the health industry. This one is particularly depraved and particularly egregious, and I'm shocked that Williams and Marx haven't acted.
Well, they'll be acting now, and I hope they get sacked. I hope they are the sacrificial lambs, and I hope Gina Reinhart does not let up in her legal action. She should be going full on for everything. Just as Michael just mentioned, Brian Thompson was the CEO who was murdered. Luigi Mangione, that's the case that's underway at the moment, the alleged murderer. Marco Rubio warned the other day that left-wing violence, as Michael was saying, Bronwyn, is endemic. Gina Reinhart should be suing them for every bit of extra security she needs for now and for the rest of her life because of these grubs at the ABC, and much, much more besides.
And let's not let the Prime Minister off the hook. Where is his statement coming out condemning this sort of violence? And where's Penny Wong and
Katie Gallagher, the Minister for Women?
I mean, where are they? I mean, why do I call him Albo the Trot? Because he's a Trotskyite who always wants perpetual revolution.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to say I'm surprised. Well, let's hope that the coalition get out there. Anyway, big news today at the ABC. There should be many, many people at the ABC who are very, very nervous right now.
Well, just add to that. How would the Prime Minister like it if that had been said about his new wife?
Well, how would he like
that?
It said about any woman? It was the most despicable thing I've ever heard.
I can't believe the depravity of it.
Absolute depravity. Now, let's talk about what's happening, Michael, with Donald Trump talking about Hamas disarming. This might bring a bit of a chuckle to your face if it weren't so serious. I'm not quite sure Hamas are the disarming type. But anyway, what was your reaction to the news that there seems to be something might be happening in Gaza?
Rowan, I've just been watching the ABC's anti-American correspondent based in Washington, Lyons, bag Donald Trump, bag the Board of Peace, bag anything that's positive that's happening. I don't know why they have this troll there in Washington, but you certainly don't get any enlightenment from it. There is some question about whether Hamas is just going to get rid of its heavy weapons or all weapons. Its progress Egypt and Indonesia and other Muslim countries look like participating in this board of peace. Israel, as you know, withdrew in Lebanon from a couple of areas in agreement with the Lebanese government. The ABC is still going on about what Hamas says in Gaza. They call it the Ministry of Health, without qualifying the fact that it's run by Hamas, as all other networks around the world are being forced to do these days. The ABC standing alone, not mentioning the Hamas connection.
Absolute disgrace. Bronwyn, what do you make of Trump's now refocusing on Gaza, saying the board of peace is saying there will be a Palestinian government? Not sure that that's a great improvement. Who knows?
Well,
it was the Palestinians who voted for Hamas in the first place. So
yeah, but
your thoughts?
I read what he put out, and I just thought to myself, I hope to goodness this is going to happen. But so often things change. But if it's, I mean, it almost sounds like the recipe for turning Gaza into the Mediterranean paradise that he talked about earlier on. If we could just get a third of the way there, that'd be a big help, wouldn't it?
Well, he's a real estate mogul, so you never know. It could be the Trump Towers in Gaza that comes along. But you know, I'd be sceptical of that. Just very, very quickly, Michael, have you seen the hordes pouring into Spain? I'll be talking about this later, but have you seen that? Extraordinary scenes.
Surely that Spanish Prime Minister is the worst leader in Europe. And it's not coincidental, he's the most fanatically anti-Israel leader there. Europe is declining before our eyes, and its leadership, lack of leadership in Spain, England, France. Macron will be gone soon, thank heavens. But these scenes in Spain, any patriotic Spaniard would be horrified. They're swimming into the country now, swimming.
There we go. Michael Danby, Bronwyn Bishop, thanks so much for coming on the show. After the break, the bravest musician in the world at the moment, a true revolutionary punk in a tick. Welcome back, and thank you so much for watching. Well, back in the 1980s, when I lived in London, we all loved the music of Culture Club and Boy George. Songs like Karma Chameleon, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, Church of the Poisoned Mind, and many others. Boy George had his own drug troubles and went a bit crazy there for a while, to put it mildly. But he has recently re-emerged, reappeared as a staunch supporter of Israel in the war against Hamas and Iran. Last week, Boy George released a new single, We Will Dance Again, and it is absolutely terrific. The lyrics are unequivocal, and Boy George is being praised for his courage, with my friend Brendan O'Neill writing in Spiked that quote, "So now we know the most dangerous thing a pop star can do, stand up for Jews," writes Brendan. Hear, hear, well said. The lyrics of Boy George's single are especially poignant. Quote, "You never mention October 7, young girls raped against trees, murdered brutally for the crime of dancing." And he adds, so there's no doubt about it, says Boy George, sings Boy George, "If you're ever confused, I stand with the Jews." Now, in my opinion, this is real punk music. This is what it really takes, real courage to tell the truth in today's woke world and defy the establishment, the orthodoxy. Here's just a bit of the song.
But trust me, we will dance again. We will dance again. We will dance again.
And guess what? Now, in the irony of ironies, we learn that Boy George will no longer be appearing as Herod in Jesus Christ Superstar in London later in the year. Let me guess. The woke West End producers have all panicked about someone proud enough to stand up for the truth about Israel, the truth about the hateful pro-Palestinian movement, and the truth about anti-Semitism. If you've bought tickets to Jesus Christ Superstar at the London Palladium, cancel them immediately. What a disgrace. In the meantime, download the song, play it loudly, play it proudly, play it lots. It's better than anything Lloyd Webber's written in a long time. That's it from me. I'll see you on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for a must-watch Outsiders. Now it's time for Opinionated with Danica DeGiorgio. Good night.